Minecraft is one of the most popular video games in the world, with over 200 million sales as of 2020. Many people of all ages have enjoyed it since it was released in 2011. With version 1.18 released and its enduring popularity, I thought we could revisit the impact of the most controversial Minecraft update, 1.9. If you experienced the release of 1.9, enjoy this stroll through memory lane, and if you did not, get ready for a history lesson. Either way, grab some snacks, lean back in your chair, and enjoy. Minecraft version 1.9 brought an update to the end dimension, various bug fixes, and other small changes. But the most significant part of the update was the change to combat. This modification greatly and negatively affected the competitive player versus player landscape. Within this update, tools now have different attack values, and shields replaced sword blocks, allowing players to block hits entirely instead of just reducing damage. The most significant change that occurred was the addition of an attack timer, which forces players to wait in between attacks or suffer a significant damage penalty. Before we talk about combat, we need to understand the skill gap. In video games, the skill gap refers to how much skill relative to the average player is required to perform well. Games where players don't need to be that much more skilled than an average player in order to perform well have a small skill gap, and games where players need to be much better than the average player to perform well have a large skill gap. Having a large skill gap is crucial to the long-term success of any player versus player activity, as it gives players vast room for improvement, extending the time it takes for a player to have very little to do. There is another component of games that is extremely important and relates to the skill gap: the learning curve. The learning curve is a graphical representation of the relationship between how proficient someone is at a task and the amount of experience they have. In video games, a good learning curve allows for the player to increase their skill as they become more experienced, beating players with less experience. Now that we understand these basic principles, let's dive into the PvP. In order to understand how combat was changed in 1.9, we need to understand how it worked prior to 1.9. Combat in Minecraft revolves around dealing as much damage to your opponent as possible, while taking as little damage as possible, preferably none. Prior to 1.9, this was achieved through skill-heavy mechanics, usually dealing with knockback. Some examples of these mechanics include combos, W tapping, S tapping, using fishing rods, strafing, block hitting, butterfly clicking, and jitter clicking. In addition to the mechanics players use to gain an upper hand in combat, pre-1.9 player versus player activities required you to master clicking extremely fast while tracking the opponent consistently, making accuracy and precision requirements for success. Through a combination of the instant, spammable attacks requiring precision and accuracy, and a multitude of mechanics for players to learn and master, a learning curve that incentivized hard work and practice in order to improve was produced. This also resulted in a wide skill gap. Now that we understand pre-1.9 PvP, we can move on to post-1.9 PvP. In 1.9, PvP was completely turned on its head, and the changes made drastically affected the skill gap and the learning curve. The attack cooldown has made accuracy far less valuable, since a player only needs to click once on an opponent instead of keeping their crosshair on the player for extended periods of time. Players being able to completely block hits through the use of shields and attacks having cooldowns has made combos practically impossible, and the benefit gained from executing one was reduced dramatically because knockback no longer had a massive hold over combat, as in between attacks, the opponent could recover from any knockback they had taken. The amount of mechanics that could be learned was reduced, and the mechanics that are available, such as comboing, are unachievably difficult to master. Because of this, a player's skill does not gradually improve as it did before 1.9. Everyone is at roughly the same skill level, and then suddenly the only improvements that can be made are so impossibly difficult that it would take an AI to properly execute them. This has effectively shrunk the skill gap because gaining a significant advantage over an opponent is nearly unachievable. Overall, the changes made to Minecraft in Update 1.9 negatively affected the player versus player community. The modification of the learning curve and the inflation of the skill gap made significant improvement nearly impossible, while minimizing small improvements. The 1.9 changes place everyone on a level playing field, which many in the player versus player community saw as a slap in the face from Mojang, since it devalued their hard work, and the fact that Mojang has done nothing to address these problems in the 6 years since 1.9 released has many in the community feeling disillusioned. Thankfully, most servers with player versus player modes, such as Hypixel and Mineplex, have restored the old combat system through the use of plugins. Thank you for watching, and remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video.